So, the quarterfinals are here and the nerves are starting to build. How are you feeling, Matt?
Well, it's been many sleepless nights so far, obviously building up to tomorrow for England against France. It's bringing back memories of the Euros. The nerves are kicking in, but looking forward to it. Hopefully it's going to be a good game.
Hopefully so.
And welcome to World Cup Sera Qatar, a podcast and presented by sports journalism students from the UCLan at the University of Central Lancashire, live from our TV studios in Preston. I'm Matt Ward.
And I'm Ryan Richardson. So football's back this afternoon with the quarterfinals taking place. Croatia take on Brazil at 3, and after that Netherlands will host Argentina. Some World Cup superstars to look forward to, and joining us in the studio are our fellow students.
I'm Will Knight. I'm a second year sports journalism student.
I'm Stuart McCracken and I'm also a second year sports journalism student.
And I'm Jack Finley, a third year sports journalism student.
We'll hear from those in a few minutes, but first we welcome live from Qatar the BBC sports reporter Ollie Foster. Welcome, Ollie. So, how are things in Qatar for you?
Hi guys, thanks for having me. Ryan, yeah, it's been going okay. I've hit the ground running. I've sort of come through halfway through the tournament into the sort of the last 16 stage, and now, like you say, we are all looking forward to the quarterfinals. I've been here before. I was here 3 years ago for the Club World Cup, and it has really changed. It's not just all the skyscrapers that have rocketed up in Doha, but 3 years ago it felt like a police state, and everywhere you went, all the authorities deeply suspicious of what you were doing. But just as we anticipated, with all the controversial build-up to this tournament, since they were given it 12 years ago now, all those kind of suspicions and all those restrictions that were put in place, they've been dropped, really, and we're sort of free to go about and do our business as we please. It doesn't mean that we haven't ignored some of those really big issues that we need to report on, like the migrant workers. There was another death in the last 24 hours or so that we've been reporting on, and all their rules about criminalising same-sex relationships and women's rights. So, but we just feel a little bit freer that we've been able to do that. And also we've got the football as well, some fantastic football that we've been able to talk about as well. And these last 2 rest days have been really, really difficult, haven't they? But finally we can get our teeth back into talking about these fantastic 4 matches that we got coming up over the next 24 hours or so.
So, Ollie, a lot was made about the heat in Qatar before the tournament started. What's it been like? Obviously, there's not been a lot reported on how hot it is in Qatar. How have you been, keeping up with the warm temperatures?
Well, do you remember for 5 years it was still going to be a summer tournament? And I dread to think what that was going to be like, because it is still super toasty here during the day. But the sun does go down fairly early. So at the moment, you're waiting for this 3 o'clock kickoff between Croatia and Brazil. That is 6 o'clock, still very, very warm, but it is dark. So the sun has gone down by then. But during the day, a lot of people, the way the whole environment is here, you don't really see fans out and about during the day. Everything's kind of behind closed doors in these super huge kind of Western hotels. A lot of the fans kind of hide themselves away in there. But for the matches, it's pleasant. It's very humid and very close, although it's quite cloudy today just looking out the window here from the 28th floor of where we're staying. But I was doing an interview earlier with Danny Murphy. Yeah, it's warm, it's close. I wouldn't like to run around in it for 90 minutes or 120 minutes and then have to take penalties at the end of it.
Yeah, you're going to have been out there for a while come the end of the tournament. Is there any item that you took with you that you was going to keep you company over there, or that remind you of home almost?
No, I'm kind of getting a bit long in the tooth, and especially with technology, if you need to keep in touch with people, you don't need, to be reminded. How easy was it for me to just click on my iPad and chat to you guys for 15 minutes? Don't need any of that. You get in touch with the family any way you can. I'm kind of used to being away from home. This is my 3rd or 4th World Cup now. So yeah, you just crack on with it. And to be honest, on the sports news side of things, we are so busy your feet don't really touch the ground really once you get into the swing of it. So even though we've had these 2 rest days, certainly wasn't a rest for us because the news never stops.
Yeah, and obviously you kind of answered our next question there. We were going to ask you if you've had any time for sightseeing, but you've answered it there. So obviously, you're with the BBC. Do you sort of interact with any of the squads? The England squad, the France national squad, or are you just with the BBC? 24/7.
Well, we've got a large BBC operation out here because we've got all our foreign language services out here. BBC Africa, they're still very excited by Morocco still being in it. Senegal obviously got through to the last 16 before they were knocked out by England, but they're all piled in behind Morocco now. So we've got a lot of colleagues that we can tap into their expertise when it comes to North African football. We've got our sports editor out here, Dan Rowan, sports correspondents, Natalie Perks and Nesta McGregor as well. Then we've got a reporter in the England camp, Alex Howell. So he's our go-to for the England camp down at Al Wakra. That's about 10 miles south from here. I went to a few matches over the weekend and did a couple of pieces for the 6 o'clock news and the 10 o'clock news. But my primary role now for the rest of the tournament is to operate out of our live point, which is on the Corniche, which is the bay. You've seen the pictures of the Dubai skyline. So we've got a lovely kind of backdrop of all the skyscrapers lit up at night. So that's our live point where we anchor pretty much all our coverage and all our programs that go across BBC World and BBC News. And from there, that's when I might throw to a football match, which we'll be doing later today at both those quarterfinals. And then, we're also going to throw to the Netherlands. We've got somebody in Amsterdam, and we've got somebody in Sao Paulo. We've got somebody in Rio de Janeiro as well, because obviously the BBC operates far and wide. So we feel that we've got these quarterfinals covered, shall we say. And of course, we've got our colleagues in BBC Sports. Both today's quarterfinals are across the BBC. So we can use their pundits as well and use their pictures very readily.
And Ollie, do you still get a buzz from covering the World Cup? You said you've covered multiple World Cups in the past. Is this still one of your favourite tournaments to go out there and cover?
Yeah, absolutely. The Olympics are great, and I've done Olympic Games, but that's kind of a multi-sport event, and you sort of pick and choose which ones you prefer. Track and field, the athletics. I cut my teeth on that as a young reporter. Absolutely loved that. But once you get into the hurly-burly of European Championship, World Cups, with these superstars of the global game that are just recognisable everywhere, and the fact that we've reached the penultimate weekend, isn't it, we're coming into, and you've still got Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. I've got a soft spot for Luka Modric. It's the last time we're going to see those 3 exceptional players on the world stage. You can't not get a buzz about reporting on players like that and teams of this magnitude.
So we're going to move on to the football that's being played today, and you've obviously mentioned that you've got a soft spot for Luka Modric, and obviously he's in action against Brazil. Is it going to be a tough game for Croatia? Obviously Brazil, they turned it on, they showed sort of their quality last time out against South Korea. Do you think it's going to be easy again for Brazil, or will Croatia put up a fight like they did in the Euros and get far?
We weren't really expecting that performance from Brazil. They got it in them, but did they really show it in the group stages? But my word, against South Korea, what was South Korea doing? But they were 4-0 up, weren't they, Brazil? And they just took their foot off the gas. They looked exceptional, and of course, everybody was willing Neymar to be back because he's had this World Cup curse. He broke his back at his own World Cup in 2014. He wasn't fit last time out properly in Russia. They look very good. Croatia do what Croatia do, really. Well, wasn't it in Russia? There was 2 penalty shootouts, took England to extra time. They really do it the hard way. They needed penalties to get past Japan. I don't give Croatia much of a chance, but if they can bore the life out of Brazil and keep them at bay, you just never know, because it will only take one of those beautiful, like 25-yard chip through balls, a little no-look pass from Luka Modric, and then who knows where we are, and will Brazil panic? I can't see it, but it will be a fantastic match to get us going into these quarterfinals.
And we've also got Netherlands against Argentina tonight. Lionel Messi taking the stage again. Will Argentina, they haven't really shown the full quality yet. Do you reckon this is the game that they need to and can do to beat a Netherlands side that have looked quite solid so far?
Yeah, Netherlands very solid, and Louis van Gaal has been. Here is a man in his 70s who's battling with prostate cancer, but he has been a laugh a minute, an absolute hoot. I've never seen Louis van Gaal like this. He is enjoying every second of taking this Netherlands team as far as he can, and he's been criticised for being too negative. And he says, "Look, we can't play like the Netherlands of old. This is how everybody plays. We are solid, but they've got the players there in the Bergwijns and the Deprays and some Gakpo. I mean, what a superstar he is going to be to cause Argentina problems. But yeah, Argentina haven't really opened up yet. But what we've seen with this Argentina team is that they know that this is Messi's last chance. He's 35. He's not going to play at another World Cup. They cracked the Copa America for him last year. I mean, that was a big thing, but there's nothing bigger than the World Cup. And it's not just Messi who has stepped up and has got them through these matches. You just feel the rest of those Argentina players are galvanising around him as well, and they're upping their game, knowing the enormity of it. And I just think in a similar way to Brazil, I think they're just going to have a little bit too much for the Netherlands. But it's a really historic tie. You go back to those great World Cup matches in the 70s that Argentina prevailed in, in the biggest one of all, in that 78 final, wasn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think Argentina got a little bit too much, but another fantastic match.
And obviously, we just want to ask a question on England. Obviously, we got told by our sources that you're a massive Spurs fan. So we just want to ask, thoughts on Harry Kane. Only one goal so far in the tournament. Not really been firing, but he has got them 2 assists. What does sort of England need to do to, get him, back amongst the goals and get him that golden boot for the World Cup?
Oh, that's not the story. Why is Eric Dyer not starting? I'm joking. It is. Hey, look, this is a similar vibe to the Euros. What happened there? England were hot and cold through the group stages. What's wrong with Harry Kane? Can we drop Harry Kane? Then he goes and does that against Germany in the last 16. He goes and scores against Senegal in the last 16 here. Harry Kane, if he's fit, will not be dropped, because the issue is who plays around him. We think they'll be unchanged, Foden and Saka around him, but just chatting to Danny Murphy earlier today, he thinks that Gareth Southgate will make a slight tweak, and if anything, he'll look at whether he can expose the French fullbacks, particularly their right back. So will he go with somebody like Rashford as opposed to Foden? Brilliant options to have, though, aren't they? And we haven't even mentioned Jack Grealish, who can come in and unpick the French. So many different options there in that front three. But we think the rest of the team, we think it's going to be Henderson, Bellingham, and Rice in that midfield three, and then the back four, as you'd expect. I mean, it was Kyle Walker who pretty much let the cat out of the bag that he's expecting to start against Kylian Mbappe. So put Kyle Walker's name down. He told us that 2 days ago.
And just to round this off now, Ollie, have you got a score prediction for the England game tomorrow? And who is your favourite for the tournament with the teams that are still left?
I think Argentina are going to win it. I just think the Messi story would be absolutely superb. And I think they've got enough to get past the Netherlands. They've got enough to get past Brazil. And if they can do that, they won't be beaten in the final. I think it will be tight between England and France. And I'm not particularly confident for an England win. I think there's lots of ifs and buts. I don't want this to sort of come back and bite me in the bum. I think just as Gareth Southgate was found out in that Euro final, he didn't really have a plan B. He didn't react. He didn't react to what Roberto Mancini did with those early substitutions in the second half. I think if it's tight at half-time, goalless, 1-1, I think Didier Deschamps that could be the key. What Deschamps does first, or does Southgate go against type and does he do something first rather than react to the other manager? They can use 5 substitutes now, and I think that will be critical in that second half. So I think it could be all on Gareth Southgate. as to which way this goes and what substitutions he makes in that second half to counter or perhaps to steal a march on what the French are doing and how they've started.
Yeah, it promises to be an exciting match. Thank you very much for joining us, Ollie. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Hope you keep cool over there in Qatar.
Take care, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Ollie. Thank you. So we've chatted to Ollie. It's time to bring in our studio pundit. So obviously we mentioned England. You know, kick-off for the big fixture is a day where tension is building. We're going to open it up. You know, what are England going to have to do to beat the current World Cup holders?
Well, I think we've got a stronger midfield than they do. I think with Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham in there, we can cause problems for them. Obviously, they've had some injuries. They've not took Pogba, they've not took Kante, so I think that's an area on the pitch where we need to capitalise.
Yeah, it's certainly the midfield battle. I think it will be key, and I think England do have the players to win it. It's just whether England can deal with the threats that the French obviously pose with Mbappe and Dembele on the wings. Both tricky wingers, can cut inside, can go outside, and then you got the main man Giroud up front, all-time top goal scorer for France now. He'll be licking his lips at that defence probably.
I think ultimately the quality on the pitch is matched on both sides. You know, the attacking quality of both teams is fantastic. The midfield of both teams is fantastic. I think France will probably have a stronger defence than us ultimately. I think England maybe lacks that small bit of quality. Maybe just ultimately Harry Maguire and John Stones, very fantastic players, but are they on the level of Varane and Hernandez? That's what England really need to consider tomorrow.
And it's a game that's going to have an abundance of attacking talent from both sides, and one of those players, Marcus Rashford, the PSG president come out recently and said that he would like to sign the English forward on a free transfer from Manchester United. You got any thoughts on that, Will?
So Rashford's contract is up at the end of this year. Manchester United do have the option to trigger a 1-year extension with him. He's on about 200,000 a week, so PSG can certainly improve his wages on that side of things. Whether Rashford himself, you know, he's from Manchester, he's been playing for Manchester for so many years, he's become an icon of the team. You know, I don't think he's going to ultimately move, but it's a very clever tactic from PSG, maybe just to get in the head of the English a bit. Mbappe, this PSG legend so far, playing on the French squads, maybe just a bit of a game of words, but I don't think anything will really come of it.
It's almost a bit naughty, isn't it? Like, they're trying to get in the English players' heads, maybe give France that edge. It's a bit of a tricky situation, but I agree with you. I don't think Rashford will be going anywhere from Manchester United anytime soon.
Trying to lure him away to the dark side, maybe.
Hopefully not.
And obviously, speaking of talents, obviously it's been mentioned a lot that Kylian Mbappe, you know, he is the danger man for France. But you know, who else are England going to have to be wary of in this squad? You know, it's not just Mbappe. You know, if they mark Mbappe out of the game, who else have they got to look out for?
Well, I think they've got Dembele coming in on that right side as well. Very similar player to Mbappe with his pace. He's also basically two-footed as well, which could cause problems. He could go either way, cut inside and go around. He's good on the ball, so obviously I expect Luke Shaw to be at left back. I think that's going to be he's going to have to be marked on that left side as much as Mbappe is going to have to be as well.
That's one thing. The French have the option of playing either wing for either of their wingers, so they might change it for either half, and that will test Luke Shaw and Kyle Walker to the ultimate. When you have different players to deal with, you're thinking about what did they do in the first half, then it's ultimately changed. So it's going to be a big test for our fullbacks, I think, and that obviously will bide the question: do you go for 5 at the back or 4 at the back then to try and cut that threat?
As you mentioned earlier, Stuart, as well, Olivier Giroud brings a completely different game to Mbappe and Dembele. England defence cannot be sleeping on him.
No, you can't just mark up the two wingers and then forget about Giroud, because he's got the quality himself. He's a great hold-up man as well. That's one thing. If France are on the back foot, he can hold up the ball and bring the whole team forward himself. And he's a fox in the box. Whenever he gets a chance, he just seems to put it away, especially for France. Maybe in his older days he would have missed a few, but nowadays he seems to finish everything.
And it's been a big debate for the entire tournament, but even more so leading up to this game. Southgate has always liked to play 5 at the back, but this tournament he's been playing a 4. What's everyone's thoughts on what you'd play against France?
Don't change. Keep it the way you've been doing it so far. It's been working. You know, the back 4, 2 wing backs and 2 centre backs. You know, you've got those 2 centre backs to focus on the forward, 1 on either side to focus on either winger. And if you change your game plan now, maybe that throws a bit of a change to throw the French off their game and make it a sudden change that could alter the course of the match. But just continue doing what you've been doing. It's worked against some really strong teams, maybe not as strong as the French. Obviously, USA, Iran, Wales, definitely not on the level of the French. But Senegal, we perfectly beat them. We had that game in control, I think, for the majority of it. I don't think anyone will dispute that. So just keep doing what you're doing, and that allows more players to focus on attacking, because you're not going to win a game if you don't score goals.
I'd go 5 at the back. I know it's not exactly what England fans may want, but I think, like Stuart said before, they've got the wingers coming in, but they've also got the fox in the box, Giroud. So it's an extra man on him, and then more coverage on the wings. Look at Jude Bellingham in the middle. Look at that counter-attacking football he provided against Senegal. I think he can do that again. We've got Foden on the wing. He holds up the ball brilliantly. You can bring other players into the attacking play. I think 5 at the back is the right way to go against France.
The problem is with that though, do you play it, then you've got that 3-man midfield that works so well against Senegal, the Henderson, Bellingham and Rice. You probably have to drop one of them, and that's Henderson played brilliant. You're not going to drop Bellingham, you're not going to drop Rice. But then do you drop a winger then and play someone up front with Keane, maybe a Rashford and a Keane up front too, maybe? Rashford to run off Keane.
I think we could go to in midfield and obviously bring Henderson on later in the game if that's the way it plays. But obviously Kane, he needs to get into the box more really. That's all I'd ask of him. And we've seen him play in this system before and it works. It worked in the Euros. We played 5 at the back a lot and he scored a lot of goals.
Maybe it's just a case of having Rice play in the middle of the central, and then drop back whenever the French regain possession, because that way you've still got 2 in the middle and you can change to a back 5 whenever the French gain possession.
I have to agree with you there, Will. That's what I'd go for. Rice, he's played centre back in his career, and I think he's versatile enough to move in those positions. And throughout the game, I think you got back to a 5, you're probably going to asking France to come at you, and I don't think that's wise. And Jude Bellingham, he's had a sensational tournament, but France are by far the best team we'll have played so far, and I think if we switch to a full back 5, he might be a bit isolated in that midfield.
Obviously, England, they've not had, we believe, have not had a yellow card for the whole tournament. And if France are controlling that game, do we need to be a little bit more aggressive? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, but obviously you're going to have to be aggressive. I think first 15 minutes you always like to put a challenge in, let them know you're there, and you don't want to just sit back if you're against the French, because they'll ultimately open you up at some point. They've got the class, the individual brilliance of Mbappe. I think if you're England, you're wanting to use your own brilliance, use your own attacking threats you have, because it's such a waste just to sit back. I know it works at times, like Morocco for example, I've got through defending, but I think if you're in England and you're looking at your squad, you think you can do a bit better than just sit back and let them have the ball.
Obviously, he's just said, instead of sitting back, you're inviting France forward. Now, you, Jack, obviously you went for the 5 at the back. Do you think England are being a little bit defensive and sitting back with a 5 at the back and inviting France forward? What sort of your thoughts on that?
I think we can utilise our defensive quality a bit more with it, but just touching on the aggression thing, I think I wouldn't want a player to get a yellow card so early in the game and run the risk of getting sent off throughout the rest of it. I think we've been brilliantly defensively so far, and it's something I wouldn't want to change the game plan with.
I think ultimately, in my personal opinion, some countries maybe have been letting the French run a little bit loose, not giving them as much of a challenge as they deserve. As soon as Mbappe or Dembele get the ball, one of the fullbacks just, go in, just show them you're there. Show them you're not gonna run laps around us. Make yourself known, and maybe it could scare them a bit. You never know. At this tournament, all you need to do is put in one good challenge, and that might be the game sorted. And
just to round off this chat, what is everyone's predictions for the game? The big question. I'm going 1-0 France. Unfortunately, I think Giroud. I think we slack off Giroud, and I reckon he nips in somewhere.
I think 2-1 England, but I think it will go to extra time.
Well, I've been told in this podcast to not predict anymore after my predictions, but I'm going to go for England after extra time. That might jinx you, but I'm going to
do extra time.
2-1 extra time.
I'm not saying, because if anyone's noticed on social media, my predictions have been different for each one, because I'm covering all bases in case France beat us or England win or we draw. So yeah, I'm not saying.
I'm not going to try and brag, Stuart, but so far last week my predictions were far better than yours. You know, I don't think anyone predicted for France to get beaten last week. So I'll say it ends full time 1-1, and then Harry Kane scores a late winner.
And so, moving on to the next quarter-final games, Morocco versus Portugal. Now, if England were to beat France and get through, we would play one of these two sides. Which one's everyone wanting to face?
I think I'd rather face Portugal, just because if Morocco do get that run going well and truly, I think I'd feel really nervous about this team that seems to be the underdog that always pulls through, and I don't think England would deal too well with that. But if we do beat France, then that'll be a massive boost for us, and I'd have no doubts that we could beat Portugal as well.
It would just be typical England to beat France, then lose to Morocco in the semi-final, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, I think if you're,
I agree there. Yeah,
if you're England, you probably would rather play Portugal, because there's less pressure.
You've got to back your team to beat a side like Morocco.
Yeah.
No, it's no
Yeah,
offence to Morocco,
yeah.
but Portugal's quality is much ahead of theirs, and our quality is much ahead of theirs. Like, we should be backing ourselves to beat them.
I think it was a bit of a surprise, definitely, that Morocco beat Spain. Obviously, the penalties, Spain, 1,000 penalties and miss every single one. Morocco made it count. But realistically, on a team like Portugal, they could do the same. But I don't think they'll be able to manage it. I think Portugal will dominate, and we'll face them in the semi-finals.
And we've got Netherlands against Argentina. Again, Lionel Messi, he's always the talking point in these games. Is he going to have enough to beat this, again, as we said before, really solid Netherlands side?
I don't think Argentina will pull it off. I think obviously we've got an orange army fan here by the looks of things with Stuart's jumper, but I think Cody Gakpo has been amazing this tournament, and I can see him scoring again in this game. I think Argentina weren't very good against Australia, and maybe Holland will be looking at capitalising on some of those issues they were showing.
I think a lot of people were underestimating what Holland can do. I think people were nearly writing them off, thinking Argentina will get through this. But Louis van Gaal seems to be the happiest, as always says, happiest he's been in his life. And then you have the whole Di Maria saying he's the worst coach he's ever had. That's just going to fire him up even more. I think Holland will probably nick this one now.
Are you changing to saying that they're going to win the tournament now?
No, I wouldn't go that far now.
I think the Netherlands are going to do it. I think Cody Gakpo has been sensational throughout this tournament, and I look forward to seeing him at Old Trafford in January.
Yeah, and finally, Croatia-Brazil. Brazil turned it on. And Croatia, Luka Modric, we all know what he can do, but will they have enough to beat this Brazil side that looked absolutely dominant against South Korea?
I don't see a path of victory for Croatia at all. I think this will be a dominant Brazil display. An old team, Croatia, and I think Brazil are just going to run riot around them. I can see them scoring plenty of goals.
I think it'll be the first 45 minutes will be tough for Brazil, but I think they'll get it over time. I think 2-0 in the end.
I've predicted from the very start that Brazil would get to the final based on pure quality. So no, I don't think they'll end up losing that much.
Well, that's that for our chat. Thank you to Will, Stuart, and Jack. So that is it for today. Thank you to our special guest Ollie Foster in Qatar.
This podcast was produced and presented by sports journalism students at the University of Central Lancashire in Preston. If you liked it, you can follow us on Spotify and YouTube and share it with your friends. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Monday, hopefully to look back on an England victory.
That was nearly on